Hello, everybody. Welcome. With me in the studio today is Yorik, also an industrial designer, an industrial product designer. Hi, Yorik. How are you?
Hi, I'm very good. Happy to be here.
Yeah, nice. Can you introduce yourself?
Yes.
Who are you? What do you do? What is your experience with 3D techniques?
I'm Yorik. I'm Yorik Lefebvre. I recently graduated as an industrial product designer and have a background in architectural studies. I did my bachelor thesis around 3D printing, orthopedic cushions, and testing new materials that can be 3D printed, and then making an automated CAD software to process the 3D scanning of the orthopedic cushions into a printable volume, basically. And then having different pressure zones and posture corrections and stuff like that.
Yeah. So if I understand it correctly, you did the software part, but also hardware with physical 3D printing objects and 3D scanning, all combined in one assignment.
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't make the printer myself, but I tested the materials to see how they compared to existing foams and how they would react, stuff like that.
Yeah. You did your thesis in a cooperation with Actor.
Yes.
It's a Belgian company that is making prostheses and cushions for people with a handicap, if I understand it correctly.
Yes.
Yeah.
They make ortheses, prostheses, like shoe soles, stuff like that. And they do some 3D printing, especially the soles and braces are 3D printed, but their orthopedic cushions are still mostly made by hand. Or not made by hand, but milled out of foam and then adjusted by hand, and a leather cover is put over it by hand.
And you did an internship in this company. So you just graduated. Congratulations.
Thank you.
But what was your experience over there? So you are an industrial product designer, so you already have experience with 3D modeling and 3D printing, 3D scanning, before you started with the internship.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then at the internship, they were pretty clear. Day one, they wanted me to work on the digitalization of the process for the orthopedic cushions. So my first semester, I mostly did medical research on what was important for these cushions and how it was made now. I also went along and saw how they did the measurements. I did a company visit to see how it was made today, to understand the process. And then I worked digitally in Grasshopper to write the code. And learn Grasshopper as well.
Yeah. So, and Grasshopper is a program that you use to modify the 3D scans.
Yeah, Grasshopper is a built-in add-on for Rhino, and it allows you to model parametrically.
Yeah.
It's kind of like coding, but more visual. You have blocks that you have to connect, and those blocks are different functions, so you can then have the same function be applied to different geometry and have sliders to adjust it afterwards, instead of in something like AutoCAD where you draw something and to change it you have to draw it again.
So the company made orthopedics or prostheses, and you did your internship there, but you really made like a new system that helped them modify the 3D scans. Was it a problem that you saw, or was it a problem that the company gave you to fix?
There was a large push from production for a more automated way to go from a 3D scan to a volume, and it was also asked of me day one, like, we want you to work on the seats, and they have for other applications made workflows in Grasshopper. So it wasn't fully on my end, but it was up to me to find how to do it, and how it can be done, because 3D scans can be very complicated geometry, and often during the scan it's not an ideal situation. People can have cramps or stiffness, and then the scan needs to be manually adjusted.
So it's also because of because of 3D scanning is not always that that easy to do, but also the people who are scanned to make the cushions for, they get cramps, or it's a difficult situation for them. And by making a system that you can adjust everything, it's also for the patients a better workflow to get scanned, or am I wrong?
For the patients, the improvement would mostly be time, because right now they already do the adjustments, but they're done manually by people who are trained both in CAD and in orthopedics. So if you take the scan and the person is very stiff or it has spasms, they put them in a very large beanbag that they push them into to get their impression. Then the beanbag is pulled into a vacuum, so it holds its shapes, and then they 3D scan that beanbag.
The beanbag,
But if the person is very stiff and they're not in an ideal position, or if it's a child and you don't want a perfect impression, but you want to correct their posture so they don't grow into like very bad scoliosis or something like that, then it needs to be manually adjusted, almost sculpted out of the 3D scan. And that's done in a specific software where they then like sculpt. And with MyCode and Grasshopper, you can select zones that then rotate and move and auto smooth and stuff like that, and then automatically make the volume to fit in the undercarriage you want.
So now you have your experience as an industrial designer. I think for every industrial designer, 3D printing is a tool that they use in their daily assignments. But in your opinion, would 3D printing or 3D scanning or anything that has something to do with the 3D techniques be a good tool to learn for other professions? I can think about doctors, orthopedics, anybody else. Would it be a good tool for them to learn these techniques?
I think with how accessible 3D printers are, they will be popping up more and more, and you don't necessarily need a designated 3D printer person, but you can just kind of understand the basics on the side, and modern printers will get you there. So I think in a lot of places it is very useful to have, especially in places where you need something custom and not something that can be mass produced. Like we did an assignment with Dominic Savio, which is a place where they help disabled people. And they have a maker's lab where they have a small printer. So if someone needs a very specific adjustment or tool or something, they can just print it there. And I think that's very nice.
And that is the strength of the 3D printing, so that they can make the tools that they need, the prostheses that they need, for example, or the small gadgets that make the jobs easier, that they can print it themselves.
Something that's not necessarily able to be mass produced. Something small scale, something custom, especially with 3D combined with 3D scanning, you can really make it fully custom to you or to the environment that it's in.
And would it be important to get 3D printers in all those places? Like I can imagine that not all the places where people with a disability live or work, that there are 3D printers, but would it be a good thing that it is introduced in those places?
I think it can be interesting. I don't think every house needs a 3D printer. I think it's similar to paper printers. Not everyone has a paper printer, but you have like the local printer shop. And then you can have the local 3D printer shop where you can go and be like, oh, I need this thing.
Like a makerspace, for example, where people can go. So it's not necessary to do like the physical investment of buying a machine, but that is one thing. So you learned about 3D printing in school and hobby. What is the investment that you have to do, like academically? What do you need to do to get to the point where you are now as an industrial designer? What do you need to learn? How can you learn it? Is it a difficult path that you need to follow, or do you think that more people can learn about 3D printing than that there are now?
I think it's definitely gotten easier. I think there's more software that's available for free. Printers are getting a lot cheaper as well, and a lot more user-friendly. Like I started in 2019 with an Ender 3, famously horrible machines.
Yeah.
I mean,
I know, I have experience with them, so
very, very cheap, and very interesting to then learn how to optimize it. But now I recently bought a new printer, finally upgrade after my Ender 3 imploded. And it's just, you plug it in, it works.
Yeah.
And then with all the online libraries that are available, if you need something that's not like fully custom, you don't even need to know how to CAD.
Yeah.
You just need to drop it in the slicer. The presets are usually almost perfect.
Yeah.
And then you just print it.
Yeah, yeah. But you think that your experience with those famously bad printers is important?
I think it's interesting because a lot of, I feel like young people are almost becoming less tech savvy.
Mm-hmm.
There's this idea that young people, they're so good with phones, they're always on their computer.
Yeah.
But often they no longer understand how it works.
Yeah.
Because they don't have to really interact with it. Everything is in an app.
Yeah.
Everything is automatic.
Yeah.
When I was a kid and I wanted something on my computer, you have to go in the files and rename things. And now there's people who just don't know where things are anymore, don't know how things work. If something breaks, there's an error code. I think it's also deliberate from companies sometimes.
Yeah.
Like it just says error this, contact support.
Yeah.
And you can't fix it anymore.
You can't fix it anymore.
And I think it's important that we keep a bit of the open sourceness of 3D printing.
Yeah.
Like with the Ender 3, you go online, there's a million adaptations and guides on how to fix it, upgrade it, change this or that into this or that. While with the new printers, it's a lot more of a closed system. Which is more user-friendly, but less, you get less experience.
So, but you like the open source community about 3D printers.
Yes, a lot.
Yeah. Because it's a lot of help and you can learn a lot about them. But if we want it in more houses, it should be more easy to use.
Yes.
Because I have experience with an Ender 3 myself, but I don't think I can sell an Ender 3 to somebody who don't want to do that. So,
and so I think if you want to go in that industry, I think it's interesting to get a more printer you can think at yourself a bit more. But if you want it to be more accessible, it's good that the easy out of the box printers exist.
Yeah. So it's a two-way system.
But then I do find it like something like Bamboo Lab where they're closing their system completely. That is a bit unfortunate.
Yeah.
Like it's good that the accessibility option is there, but you should still be able to tinker with it.
Yeah. Because tinkering is very important.
I think so. Yeah.
So you learned the 3D printing in school or by yourself, or but what are the steps that somebody needs to do to get from nothing to get a 3D print, like a functional 3D print? What do people need to do?
If you want to make something yourself, which I think is the most powerful use of a 3D printer, you need to learn how to use a CAD software.
Yeah.
There are many options. Some of them free, some of them have easy trials you can sign up for. Like Blender isn't the best software for precise prints, but it is amazing in all other more artistic ways to use. But I think you have FreeCAD or
FreeCAD is an open source, open source drawing software.
But most CAD software are quite similar. You have the 2D CAD, the 3D CAD, and then the more sculpting CAD, and then the parametric stuff like with Rhino and Grasshopper. But if you just learn the basic of like I sketch it, I extrude, I bevel, you can make a lot of things quite quickly that don't have to be too complicated. You usually, in most CAD softwares, use 10% of the tools 95% of the time. If you see that the CAD software has a bunch of tools, you don't know what they do, don't use them. You can experiment with them, but you don't have
to use them.
No.
Or you don't have to know how they work to use the rest of the program. So it's less complicated than people think. Like
if you open Blender, there's 7 tabs of things you don't know what they do. You just need to be in the modeling tab.
And just ignore the rest. All right, that's great. It's great news for people who want to try it. If somebody comes to you and he asks, I want to do something with 3D printer, where do I need to go? What is the first step? What is a tip that you would give that person right now?
I would. They want to 3D print something, or they want to make something.
They want to
3D
make something like but let's make a user case where somebody with a disability comes to you because you have a little bit of experience in that area, and comes to you and say, I have this problem, but I want to fix it myself. What should I do to be able to fix it myself? What is like the first step? What are some tips that you can give me to fix this or to make something to fix my problem?
I think a good tip is make something first, and then you can improve it.
Yeah.
Because if you try to get the perfect solution in your head, you often won't get there. You need something first, maybe even just out of cardboard.
Yeah.
Before you start CADing, to just get a shape that you want, and then it'll be a lot easier to then make it in CAD and to 3D print it.
Yeah. So first, let's call it prototyping. It's the industrial word for it. So first prototype it, and then when you have like a more or less functioning prototype, then you can learn how to draw it in 3D, and then you can print like the final version of it. So don't be afraid to start just making things. It's like
because often prototyping, they go straight to 3D printing, which it's often better to first do some mock-up before you go to 3D printing, because in a CAD software you don't have the same like 3D vision that you would have just making it out of cardboard. So it's like an extra tool for the next step. Do you think that 3D printing will change the fields of industrial designers in general, not only the orthopedics branch, but you are an industrial product designer? Do you think 3D printing and 3D scanning, or all 3D techniques, will have a huge impact on this industry? I think it already has a lot, like especially for prototyping. It reduces the costs of R&D by a lot. If you can have a 95% the same thing, but before you have to invest into molds and stuff like that, which is very expensive, you can already have a product. Or if you're a very small scale seller, you can even 3D print your final product sometimes.
And in production, really.
In production. Because 3D printing often isn't the final production method, because it's very good for prototyping, but as a final result, there's a lot of strength and cost and time issues. But if you're small scale, it can work. And if you're very custom, it can work. Like in orthopedics, they're really striving to make 3D prints that are good as a final product, because they have to be custom and they can't be mass produced. So in the field, I think it will have more impact still. Like using 3D prints to make prototypes that are closer to the final product before the investment, even better. I had a friend who did his thesis where they would 3D print something and then compare it like strength-wise to an injection mold, so they can really get as close as possible to the final product before the investment.
So really, like, it will still be a very important prototyping tool.
Yes,
more a prototyping tool than a manufacturing tool.
I think so. It can be a manufacturing tool, but in very specific
areas. And just manufacturing and, for example, very custom-made things, it is still a valuable, or it will be a valuable manufacturing technique.
Especially as it gets faster and cheaper.
If you have one last tip or a piece of advice for somebody who wants to follow the same journey you did until now, what would that be?
Get your ADHD diagnosis early, and maybe the journey will be a bit shorter. But otherwise, I think don't necessarily wait for school to teach you how to use software. Try it yourself. There's plenty of resources out there that you can use. There's maker labs everywhere if you want to make something. I remember the first time I actually from scratch designed and then made something. It is so satisfying to go from zero to a thing you can hold.
And just start doing this by yourself.
Yes.
So don't wait for school to teach it to you, but there are other ways that you can learn about these things. In your opinion,
like my little sister now at school, they learn how to use a laser cutter, and they even have a 3D printer.
Yeah.
And so the tools are there, but they often just tell you, pick a shape and laser cut it. But if you then at your own pace draw your own shape and be like, hey, can I laser cut this? Then you will learn a lot more.
You will learn a lot more. So if you have the right mindset, you will get there. And the right mindset is just try anything, and then you'll see what the problems are.
And you don't have to make something useful all the time. It's also a very powerful artistic tool, but don't just print anything. Because with these online libraries, there is a lot of, I wouldn't say garbage out there, but just, looks fun, and 3D printing has that novelty that other production methods like at home don't have. But you wouldn't get your paper printer and print out a bunch of pictures just because they're funny.
I understand.
So a 3D printer is a bit of the same. You can print stuff artistically and because you like it, but don't just print and waste endless pieces of plastic just because you want to make, I don't know, a cat.
Do you think 3D printing will help the industry to get less to be able to get less garbage, for example, or to produce less garbage? If you want to produce or manufacture something and you can make one of a kind things with a 3D printing, or with a 3D printer, you have less garbage at the end. For example, if you want to CNC something, you have like a lot of waste material, but if you 3D print it, you only print what you need. So on an industrial scale, it's maybe an interesting way ecologically.
For my thesis, the cushions, they were milled out of foam. Because foam is very good at redistributing pressure. But by milling foam, you create this tiny dust particles. It's very dirty, can be recycled. So by 3D printing it, you have some supports, of course, but overall, it is a lot less wasteful. And it is also easier to be recycled. A lot of the plastics using 3D printing can just be shredded again and made into new filament or new pellets for pellet printers.
And this is not possible with the foam they use for the cushions. No. So that is really a waste material, a very dirty waste material, I can imagine.
It sticks everywhere.
So in that way, the 3D printer has an ecological advantage as a new manufacturing technique.
Even in cases outside of like the foam, specifically where it's an end product. If you can 3D print in prototyping, you will of course create a lot of plastic waste. But compared to having to mill a piece of metal into a shape and then having to do it again because your thing was wrong, it's so much more wasteful. So having this quick, very iterative process that creates some plastic waste, but nothing compared to traditional methods.
So ecological, it's just better.
And a lot of like PLA in the right conditions can just be composted. But again, in the right conditions. Because I think there isn't enough like garbage disposal specifically for PLA, because it's becoming a more like used material. And online they advise you, take it to your local PLA processor. And I don't have that.
I never heard of one as well. So
so that needs to be something that if 3D printing is going to be more used, and PLA is such a widely used material, they need a better collection of that PLA.
But that's just one kind of plastic.
But it's the most used for more hobby printers.
The most hobby printers. Okay, maybe one last question. Do you think that that there is a lot of potential for jobs in the future that has something to do with 3D printing or 3D scanning or something with 3D techniques? What do you think is the potential of this?
I think there's still a lot of potential. I myself am still looking for a job at the moment, but I think it will be more something that also happens and not the main focus. I feel like a lot of places and like places where they make stuff will have a 3D printer, but it won't be someone's main job to be the 3D printer guy.
Yeah.
Everyone will kind of have to know.
It's like
how it works.
An extra skill in your skill package. So, like, for example, I can use Excel, I can use PowerPoint, I can use Photoshop, I can use a 3D printer.
Yes.
It's more in this way that you are thinking.
I think if you want to make like a full career out of 3D printing, it's more in the small independent cases where people will have like a small printer farm to make their little product, or in maker spaces and stuff like that, but not necessarily in the corporate world. Then if you want to really focus on just 3D printing, you would have to be like an electromechanical engineer and make a 3D printer.
Make a 3D printer, a machine builder, for example. Thank you for your for the conversation. I think it was really inspiring. I hope it will be really inspiring for a lot of people. So thank you for the conversation. Good luck with the start of your career. You're on a nice next chapter of your life. So I hope you'll find a fun job, maybe with 3D printing or with 3D scanning or something in that area. So good luck and thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you for listening. We see each other again in the next episode.